usually. In our industry, if you have an auction house, you sell art, maybe you sell furniture, that kind of stuff. If it's a car auction, they have set commission rates that they charge for everybody, but they also know what their overhead is. And when it becomes more difficult is when you have to leave your area, like drive several hours away to possibly do an auction, and then you've got to be competitive. And so what's the process for us determining what we're going to charge people? And so that's really what we're going to talk about. So a call comes in, somebody has a business, and we're retiring, and we tried to sell the business as a going concern. We couldn't. We're just going to liquidate. Okay. Now, this is, I told you it's only going to be like 5 things that I'll tell you that are really good. It's really good stuff. And this is the second one. The first one was tell people you're an auctioneer. This one is that when you talk to people on the phone, you need to qualify the auction before, you say, oh, it's a 4-hour drive. You say, well, I'll be there this afternoon. You jump in the car and you drive 4 hours there, and you realize it's a bunch of CRAP. And you go, oh, now I've got to drive 4 hours home. And there's no auction to be had. That's a bummer. Okay? Now, if it's 2 blocks down the road, then there's no skin off your nose if you go down there. But, and this is stuff that I have done over the years, okay? So one of the things that I want to talk to them about is, they say, we have this equipment. Okay, great. Do you have an inventory? Well, no, we don't have an inventory put together yet. Do you have any photographs? Well, yeah, I got some photographs. Okay, email me the photographs. Let me look at those. And then I can determine, are we prepared to take this to the next step? I.e., is this really something we want to do? 8 out of 10 calls, let me rephrase that. By 7 on personal property sale, about 7 out of 10 calls we get about people wanting to talk to us about selling their stuff, we don't do it. Okay? A lot of times people call with stuff that's not enough value there to warrant taking it to auction. And so it's very important that we talk to them.
Give a dollar amount you shoot for, like if it's less than $10,000 worth of stuff.
Well, I mean, I've done very small auctions, but the smaller the auction, the higher our commission. So, if it's $10,000, would we do it? Probably, but we're probably charging 50% commission. And that would be something I'd hope we'd set up in about an hour. We'd check them out in a half a day, and we'd still make several $1,000s. On the other end of the scope, if it's a $500,000 auction, then we're talking about a much smaller commission rate, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the short answer is no, I really don't have that number. I mean, I'd like to know what it is. Sometimes it's why are you selling? Sometimes people call with an incredible reason. And little old grandparent types, I've got a soft spot in my heart for them, and if I can help them out, I'll certainly try. So no, I don't have a set number that's a minimum. But so they call and what is it? It could be real estate, firearms, heavy equipment, manufacturing equipment. Do we know anything about that? And if we don't, we're usually going to bring somebody with us who does know something about that. And then they've sent us some photographs. Maybe they've sent us an inventory sheet. And here's the thing about inventory sheets. Oh, yes, we have an inventory. And they send you an inventory, and you can't read it because they have abbreviations for, stuff. And then they have some long number that's an in-house number. It means something to them, doesn't mean anything to me, and, and stuff you can't use. So, they may send you an inventory, and you go, I can't read it. I don't know what we're talking about here. So, but you get the information, you go, okay, there's enough stuff there. We want to talk to these people. And then we're going to set the time to go actually see them in person, okay? And then we're going to confirm what's in the auction. And what we're going to do as we walk through is we're basically appraising stuff. And one of the little tools that I use, it's a little inventory counter. You click it, tumblers turn, counts whatever you're counting. So you walk through, maybe it's, it's a small sale, maybe every time you see $100, you're clicking it. If you see it, maybe it's a little bit bigger, and every time you see $1,000, you're clicking it, etc. Okay? And that's usually when we don't have any kind of an inventory, and I'm walking through and I'm trying to get an idea of what all is being sold. Now, here's the thing. We're going to make this appointment. We want to make sure, if at all possible, there is a decision maker, at least one, preferably all, like if it's owned by a husband and wife, I'd really like to have both of them there. And we want a decision maker there because, if you've got just the janitor, not to speak bad about janitors, that's showing you through the building, we're not gaining anything by one-on-one conversation. So I'd like to have somebody that's a decision maker there so we can talk to them.
So you make them aware of that at that point too?
Yes.
I don't want the janitor opening the door, walking.
Right. I say, okay, so you'll be there, and they go, well, no, I can't be there. Well, when could you be there? Well, I could be there tomorrow. Okay, I said, well, I'd really like to meet you face to face, and I would think that you would like to meet me face to face, because I certainly recommend that you meet whoever you're going to hire. And they go, oh, okay. And so you start walking through, if it's an estate, okay, big, what if it's an estate, you ask the question on the phone, has the family already pulled out everything they want? If they say, well, no, we're going to do that next Saturday, you say, fine, I'll see you the following Monday. There's no point in the world in going to look in the estate until the family has taken what they want, because chances are they're taking everything good. Then you ask questions like, oh, how many family members are there? Oh, well, there's 7 children. Write that one off. Okay? There's no children. There's a niece, and she lives on a boat. Okay? She's not going to take much. Okay? So that might be a little better situation. But if it's a business, we sure want one of the business owners or the general manager, somebody in charge, whoever's going to make the decision on the choosing the auction case to be there. And we walk through, we say, well, tell us, give us the 25-cent tour. Show us what all we're selling. You're selling everything in the building. We've taken out the few things we want. We're ready to walk out the door. Okay, now we're going to test them on that, or whatever they say. Oh, we're not going to take very much. Really, okay, as we go through, tell me what you're going to take. Tell me what we can sell, what we can't sell. Okay, so we walk through the building. And so this was actually and we don't really sell antiques, but this was an antique. It's an antique shop. You got the feeling it was like a mall. You got the feeling maybe it was booths, but it was all owned by the same person. And they had a court order to sell it. And but anyway, but here's a good example. So you're walking through this place, and you come to this little nook, and they say, okay, we're going to sell everything in here. You go, really? Yeah, everything except the furniture. And then the stuff on the wall belongs to my brother-in-law. He's going to come get that stuff. But we're going to sell that, and then, well, some of those porcelain pieces we can't sell either, but everything else we're going to, okay, so, now I'm going, whoa, there's not much there that we're selling. Some auctioneers will take a video camera. If they suspect there's going to be any, we're going to pull this out, we're going to pull this out, we're going to pull this out. And we're going to explain to them, say, well, here's what we're trying to accomplish. I'm trying to find out how much you're going to sell, because I'm going to base my commission on that. The more you sell, lower my commission. Less you sell, higher my commission. And so you get that across in there, and so they understand that, okay? And that's I mean, I've literally done that. Walk into a room and they start out, yeah, we're going to sell everything in this room. Yeah, well, except for the PA system and the furniture. Oh, we can't sell the flags either. Okay, we're going to sell this and that trash can. And what you don't want to have happen is you go through and the reason we're counting this is we're trying to get an estimate in our mind of what this sale is going to bring. Now, here's the caveat. Do not let the seller know that you're appraising it in your mind. Do not let them hear you clicking in your pants. Pardon the expression. So, now I don't know if some of you guys will understand. Certainly the older guys will understand. My dad trained me how to jingle change in my pocket when we were waiting for my mother and my sister on Sunday morning to go to church. And you jingle and you change. Well, anyway, ladies, you'll have to figure out something else. You could put it in a coat pocket, you know, but we're clicking this. And as I'm clicking, if they're standing close, I may jingle the change in my pocket so they don't hear me clicking that thing. I do not, because what happens? Well, so what's the big deal? What if they know we're doing that? Then they're going to ask you what everything is worth. Well, what do you think this brings? This is a really nice laptop. I bought this brand new. It cost $1,400. What do you think it's going to bring? Oh, what about this mouse? This nice mouse costs $12. What do you think it's going to bring? And then they're going to, it's a nightmare. It is a nightmare. So we're covert. Now, you can also take a notebook and draw a slash mark every time you see $1,000 or $100, whatever, and just count them up later if you want to. Whatever process you want to use, that's great. But, and if you can memorize all those numbers, that's great too. But we've got to determine what's in the auction, okay? As we are walking through, we're going to note logistical problems. This was a toxic waste recycling facility in Beaumont.
That's about right.
Hold on, where was that?
And
Yeah, right.
I used to have a guy that worked with me who owned a environmental consulting company at one time, and he was real big on not wanting you to ever step in what you thought was water. We went through a plant one time, and the lights were off, and it was hard to see. And there was a puddle like that, and I was just walking on, you know, hell, I had boots on, I walked right through it. It just grabs my arm, you don't know what that is. We thought this was kind of funny. So we're going to note those logistical issues as we go through, because, you know, I looked at a restaurant one time on the second floor of a building, and I walked up these stairs, and then I realized I didn't see the elevator, and so then I walked to the corner, I saw the elevator. The elevator was tiny. Matter of fact, it was so tiny, the doorway was so tiny that I thought in my mind, and I don't have that broad of shoulders, thought I was going to have to turn sideways to get in the elevator. So we know we're not packing any furniture or any refrigerators into that elevator. And so we go in, and I said, is there a freight elevator here? And they said, no, just that elevator out there. Okay. Stairwell turned. I said, as we go in there, there's one prep table, a stainless steel prep table that was like 15, 16 feet long. And there's, you know, big 2- and 3-door refrigerators and freezers. And I said, how did y'all get this equipment in here? Said when it was being built, before they finished the walls, that front wall, they left it to the last, and we lifted all this stuff up on a lift and rolled it right in onto the floor.
Oh, crap.
Okay. Got any idea how we're going to get it out? And they're like, oh, wow, that's a good question. And I said, okay, well, what, that exit, I mean, some of this stuff, in theory, you can get them down a staircase, but it's not gonna be easy. And so we finally figured out we'd have to go through, there was a big double door, went in the dining room, there was double doors that went out onto a patio deck on the second floor now. And they had a beautiful wrought iron railing all the way around. I said, we're gonna have to get a cutting torch, we're gonna have to cut a big section of this wrought iron railing out. We're gonna have to have a scissor lift or something out there, forklift, something out there, we can roll stuff out and lower it to the ground. Okay, who's gonna pay for that? So it's those type things that you're looking for when you see, when you walk through the place. So it's not always just about evaluating the assets, but it's evaluating the site itself. It's a warehouse. Okay, does it have a dock? It's a good thing. Does it have a ramp? That's a good thing. It's a warehouse and it's all ground level. There is no dock, there is no ramp. Okay, and I have to let people know about that. Do they have a forklift, etc., etc. So we go through, we might have issues with setup. We'll turn the electricity off. Okay, can we get the electricity turned back on? That's going to cost way too much money. Okay, so we carry a little portable generator and little floodlights. We can light a place up, and so obviously to set part of it up, we may have to do that. So another thing, we're making notes on all those. So one of the things I like to do is when I leave the meeting is go out and sit down in my car, and I carry with me a check sheet, and it has all the who, what, where, when, why things that we've filled out in the office, and then it has a lot of questions to remind me to ask, to make sure I haven't gone all this way and forgot to do something. And so I have a checklist, and I literally check it off, fill in all the answers, and then I turn that over and I start estimating my expenses. It's going to take a 3-man team a week, 5 days, to set this up. And we're going to have travel, we're going to have hotels, we're going to have food for 3 days or 5 days or however many long it is. And do they have the checklist in their notebook? Expense?
Is it one of your later
Check.
slides? There's a checklist for action budget and checklist for action budget.
Oh, yeah.
One of your next slides.
Yeah. You've got that. Okay. And so anyway, I'm going to start. Well, it's fresh on my mind. Okay, I start filling all that out because I'm going to need that when I get back to the office to figure out what our commission is going to be, and we're going to put together this proposal. What are we going to charge to the seller? What are we going to pay as the auctioneer? Usually, we're paying all the staff to set up. Things that I charge the seller usually are things like if something needs to be cleaned. I'm not in the cleaning business, but we can usually get it cleaned. Like if it's a car, an automobile, it needs to be detailed. We're going to take it to a detailer. We're going to have a mobile detail company come to the auction site and detail, the cars or whatever. I'll charge things like that to them. A lot of times we charge the advertising. We're going to talk about real estate later today, and we always charge the advertising on a real estate auction. And we'll talk about that more in depth. And so are we going to have a buyer's premium? Every auction we've done, not benefits, but every non-benefit auction that we've done since 1992 has had a buyer's premium. And
Is that the same amount every time, or?
no, it changes. It seems to go up. We're at 18% now for credit cards and 15% for cash. We don't do cashier's checks. Cash, wire transfers, or ACH transfers. A lot of people in the art world, it's not unusual to see 25% commission. I've seen 30%, not commission, buyer's premium. I've seen 25 to 30% buyer's premiums on some art sales and antiques too. And so you have a list in there. There's all kinds of things. So here's a good example. We're gonna drive, and I'm out in the Austin area. We have an auction up here in Dallas area, and it's just too far to go back and forth. So everybody's going to be put up in hotels, and then we decide how many lots, is this auction going to be? How many auctioneers is it going to take? Well, let's say there's 2,000 lots. I'm certainly not going to sell 2,000 lots by myself. There was a time in my life I probably could have, but those days are past. So it's going to take a couple of auctioneers. How many ringmen or bid assistants are we going to have? If it's going to be start at 9 in the morning, go till 9 at night, kind of a day, you got to have people that fill in while people take breaks. So if you're going to need 2 ringmen in the crowd at all times, you're probably going to need to hire 3. How many people are in the office? How many clerks, etc. And so you just start adding that stuff up. And something that used to get left off of our budget sometimes was dinner. We have a bunch of people work all day at an auction site. We'd usually always, especially if we're on the road, we're going to go back to a hotel, we're taking them all out to dinner. And, take 15 people, even go eat Mexican food. That's usually the cheapest. Everybody has a couple margaritas, and you order some appetizers, and everybody gets an entree, and, next thing you know, you've spent $1,000. Should that have been on our budget? Yeah, that should be on our budget. And then whatever you come up with, I always put a buffer, just miscellaneous, at least $500 to $1,000 on stuff we don't know what it's going to be. And so we make those notes, we get back, and when we get in the car, first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull out our clicker and see what does it say. And you go, holy smokes, it's a $100,000 auction. All right, that's exciting. So we think it's $100,000, and let's say, just for saying purposes, that we're going to charge, let's put it over here, so buyer's premium of, make it easy, 10%. Okay? So we know we've got 10,000 working on this estimate of $100,000. And hopefully we have been conservative on our $100,000 estimate.
You always want to err on that side.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Usually, I want my number here to be just an average auction, and then if it turns out to be real good, it's a $120,000 auction. That's all the better, okay? And the seller says, what do you think this auction is going to bring? I'm going to do everything in my power not to answer that question. Now, sometimes they'll say, well, we're not moving forward until I have some kind of number for you of what you think this sale's going to do.
Mm.
And if I was held down to that, I'd probably say it's going to do somewhere between 85 and 110,000. I'm going to give myself a little room, okay? Certainly on the bottom side. Now, what affects this? All kinds of things affect this. Mike talked about a story about, I don't know if there's Mike. Anyway, I did an auction one time, and it had oil-filled equipment, heavy equipment. We went to set it up, went down to the local cafe, small town, had our auction hats on, sat next to this old geezer at the lunch counter. And he said, y'all got an auction around here? I said, yes, sir, we do. And he said, well, who's you selling for? And I told him the name, and he was like, oh. He went to eat his food. Not think anything about it. And I said, well, we hope to see you at the auction. It's a week from Saturday or whatever it was. And he looked at me and he said, son, nobody's coming to that auction. Wow, what? He said, that man has screwed everybody in this county. Nobody from around here's coming. Scared me to death. Turned out, had enough people come from outside the area, the auction did fine, but it did scare me nonetheless. So can that affect this? Yeah, that can affect that. But that's something we don't know, okay? Maybe at first. Maybe on the other side of the coin, everybody loved those people. They were the pillars of the community. And now, on the good side, maybe it does even more. We just sold out a old line restaurant in Austin called Catfish Parlor. And it was a very popular place. And it was been there for 40-something years. And so it was one of my favorite places to eat too. A lot of people wanted to buy something as a memento of the restaurant because they loved it so much. And consequently, they paid premiums for all the decor items, which is antique signs and stuff like that. I mean, it just went nuts over that kind of stuff. So sometimes, you don't know. And where this can also get in your eye and get you in trouble is when you go have a real good auction. And let's say it is a specialized asset. For us, it might have been like a sound and lighting auction or something like that. And prices went through the roof. And everybody thinks you are wonderful. That's a really nice feeling. And everybody's coming by and telling you, oh my gosh, y'all killed it. That's on. Those prices would get that high, yada, yada, yada. You're feeling pretty good about yourself. And then a week later, somebody else calls. And they said, we've got a sound and lighting auction. And you go, well, we are the pros from Dover. And you go look at their stuff, and you give it the same weight as that last auction, and those external factors sometimes change it. We're not in the same. We're not in Dallas-Fort Worth. We're in deep East Texas. This is not a well-known person. This was a well-known person at the good auction. It's not a well-known company, etc. On the second one, but you're feeling so, you get a little big-headed about how we kicked tail on the last one, and you assume you're going to do that on the next one. And you have to be real careful about those situations too. So we know we've got $10,000 in money coming in, okay, in the black. So we go and we do our expenses. And it's out of town. And we project our expenses to be $15,000. Okay? So we start looking at commission rates. We start looking at commission rates. That's supposed to be an arrow. And now, when we were talking to the people, one of the things, they meet you at the door, they meet you in the front lobby or something like that, and they say, well, what do you need to see? We'd like to see everything. Take us on the tour. Okay, great, here we go. And you go on the tour of the place, and you look at everything, and you come back. What I want to do is say, can we go to your office and sit down for a second? Sure. The biggest reason I want to go back to their office is I want to check them out. I want to look at the pictures on the wall. Do we have anything in common that we can talk about? They like to hunt or fish. Maybe they have sports pictures, something you can relate to. Whatever, vacation pictures on the wall. Anything like that. Possibly you went to the same university. I want to look at all that. I also want to glance at their desk. If this is a big auction where I think they're going to call more than just me, I'm going to glance at their desk, and I'm going to see if I see any auctioneer's presentation material on their desk or a business card. And I get to where I'm pretty good at reading upside down. But I don't want to scope that out. If they have a credenza, I might scope that out too. Because I'd love to know if somebody is going to compete against me. I'd love to know who it is. if they ever say, well, I've only got until about, 4 o'clock because another auction company's coming at 4. Oh, really? Okay, well then, we'll end up here and I'll be in touch with you and I'll get you the proposal by 5 o'clock tomorrow, whatever that is. And then I'm gonna go out to my car and, I'm probably gonna sit there and wait and see who pulls up at 4 o'clock. Just because curiosities just will get to me, and I'd love to know, once again, I'd love to know who it is that I'm bidding against. And so enough of the covert stuff. So we think about, what do you think the commission could be? We know there's somebody else is bidding on it, so we have to, get pretty reasonable. And we look at, it's a $100,000 sale, we're going to have $15,000 in expenses, we think. And so let's just say we came up with 15% commission. That'd be $15,000. There, that offsets our expenses. That's a $10,000 profit. And then we have to weigh, do we think that's enough for our effort? Here's another thing. A lot of times sellers are crazy. The crazier they are, the more money I expect to make. If I got to deal with a crazy person, I want to be reimbursed for that. Okay? So, yes, because you're suffering. So then we're going to up this. It's a block away from our office. We have to have that auction. I don't care if I break even. We have to have that auction because I don't want another big auction company coming in from out of town, out of state, good Lord, and being a block from my office doing a huge auction. That's going to make us look real bad. So then we're going, maybe we cut our commission rate. So these are the things that you have to determine. Okay. A lot of times we'll use a stair-step type commission, and that's in particular if we're not exactly sure what the value is. Maybe we didn't get to see everything. Maybe they're thinking about adding some more items. There's a whole nother truckload of equipment that's coming. I don't have the inventory for it yet, but I think it's going to be like this stuff here. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so we go, okay. In that situation, then I'm going to probably up my commission. In that case, I would probably do a commission at like 20% on the first 100,000, and then drop it to something silly like 7 on the amount above that. What we're trying to do is cover ourselves, okay, on the first part of that, and then make the commission sound really good on the more stuff they add. The more stuff they add, the average commission lowers. Okay? Turns into a $400,000 auction. Their commission rate's going to be real low on the average. Sometimes if it's a one-item thing, if they say, well, and we bought a brand new motorhome last year, and we paid cash for it. It was about $250,000. And, we took it on one trip, and we decided that's not the kind of life we want to do. We're selling that thing, and we're thinking about just putting it in this auction. Okay, so it's not going to bring $250,000 anymore, but it's going to be a good chunk of change. Okay, maybe we say, put that in. I'll charge you $5, or maybe I'll charge you no commission on that piece, because we're going to make 10%. Right there, what is that going to do for us time-wise? Is it going to take long to write up the description? A few, 15 minutes maybe, if we take our time. Park it. Lock it. Put a tag on it, we're done. Okay? So we're not going to have a bunch of expense in it. It's just gravy.
And it brings more quality buyers to
It's gonna bring some more different types of buyers possibly into. And it brings, 150,000.
15,000 in your phone.
That's 15,000 just gravy, okay? But we want the deal, and they go, well, we can't decide. You bring that in, no commission. Well, then they go, okay, it's not costing us any commission to sell it. So it's an incentive for them to say, yeah, we're going to put it in the auction. So you can do that as well. Questions so far? Yes, sir.
Is that BP buyer's premium?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
This might be later, and if it is, I apologize.
No.
Do you see many issues between commission and buyer's premium? Like, does the seller ever hate the buyer's premium? I mean, and how do you fight that? In my business, I have a bit of a slide. Does that make 15 and 10, for instance?
So this commission, on this scenario, the commission was 15, right there, and we're saying a 10% buyer's premium, and they go, I don't like that buyer's premium thing. I don't think I want that buyer's premium thing in my auction. You go, okay, well, you can pay it.
So
You like that better?
That's my business model, but I didn't know how you feel or find it, I guess.
Well, listen, the buyer's premium is standard across the industry. Why is that? It's because it's an advantage for the seller. Because most people do not take that into account when they're bidding. Now, some people will, the vast majority does not. I sold a piece of real estate one time. It was like $3 million. There was a $300,000 buyer's premium added to that. And as we're walking over to sign the paperwork, the guy's chuckling and goes, I forgot completely all about that 10%. That was $300,000 extra. Didn't even cross his mind. I just tell them it's an advantage for you. I strongly urge you to use it. And I have never, ever, in 38 years, had anybody say, well, we're not going to do the deal because we're not going to do a buyer's premium. I've never had that big problem. Yes, sir.
You don't see it all the time in capital, right?
No, it's a very good point. There are some industries, livestock industry, you usually not see a buyer's premium. Sometimes in some industries you don't see a traditional buyer's premium, but they'll put a $3 service charge, 3% service charge for using a credit card or something like that. So no, you don't usually see it in livestock. That's fair. And you normally don't see it in benefit auctions either. But in business type liquidations, estate type sales and stuff like that.
But all your, sorry.
Just one second.
Back to your RV situation. What if they put a reserve on it and sell it? Do you just have a flat rate at that point, or?
Yeah. I'm going to tell them that we're going to have a pass out fee or a PO fee, and you can do that, however you want to. We traditionally don't take many reserves on auctions. We'll take a few if we have to, but try to explain to them that it doesn't help you. I mean, if you have something that's very specialized, and a motorhome could fall into that category, but if it's something that we sell all the time, then we're pretty much going to try to talk them out of that reserve because, it's...
What if they have to, say a farmer goes broke and they owe the bank $25,000?
See, now that's different because the reason I mentioned that scenario, they paid cash for it. If they bought a motorhome last year and got a bank note on it, chances are it's underwater already. It was underwater probably when they drove it off the lot. And so we're going to know the first thing question, what's the payoff on it? They go, about 2 1/4. It wasn't worth 2 1/4 the day you bought it. And so then that pretty much blows the deal. If they say, well, we've got a $50,000 payoff on it. Oh, okay, well, that's not bad. But yes, then we cannot sell it absolute. It has to be sold. And but I would it depends on how much money you're making on them already, you know. If you think they're gonna make a lot of money on this sale, I'm probably not even gonna worry with the PO fee. But if not, then I'm gonna say, you know, we're gonna charge you 1% or,
Which in our area, it's a smaller community. If a neighbor has a farm sale, a retirement sale, normally the neighbor down the road's like, hey, I want to get rid of the 2 tractors. Let's just run through the sale, then we can deal with the auctioneer. We're gonna sell $40,000 of equipment, kind of a whole different deal with the same auction. So that's why I was asking.
oh, yeah, absolutely, yes, sir.
Well, like, when does it become set in stone, like your commission and buyer's premium, things like that?
There's nothing set in stone.
So you can always change up your commission and they change up sometime?
Until you sign the contract.
Okay.
Yeah, when, you know, if all of a sudden they say, well, you know, we've got this other building full of equipment, but it's all covered in about 2 inches of dust and y'all gonna need to clean all that. Can you do that? Absolutely, we can do it, just costs money. I always tell people, we can have dancing elephants at your auction if you'd like. It just costs money. Yours. And so, yeah, it's a negotiation, obviously. It's a negotiation until we sign an agreement, you know. But I always, you know, if you ever take any classes on negotiations, you know, always be prepared when they say, you know, would you do this for 12.5% commission? My next question is going to be, is that the only thing keeping us from signing a contract right now? And they go, well, no, there's a couple other things. Well, let's talk about those other things first. Then we'll talk about the money. Okay, because then after you agree to do it for cheaper, then, and we also want you to do a bunch more work. Oh, no, we're not going to do like that. So we're going to ask them, is that all that's keeping us from signing an agreement? And they say, that's all that's keeping us from signing an agreement. Then, well, I'm going to probably say, you know, if it's just about the price, if that's all that matters to you, I can find you an auctioneer that'll work for a lot cheaper. Now, they haven't ever done an auction like this before, and they just got out of auction school, but I promise you they would be happy to do it for a lot cheaper than I would. And usually we can come to an understanding. But, and then also it might be, yeah, I'll do it for 12.5%. Yeah, let's do it. Sign it up. So you just got to go through the negotiation, but think about, you know, be prepared when they say, will you do it for this? You should always get something in return. The standard, you know, you usually say is, well, if we sign the contract today, yeah, I'll do that. Well, we want to wait. Well,
I was going to kind of go
Me
back
too.
to, we were talking about reserve bids,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And something I did, I put an absentee bid in one time, and they didn't tell us what the reserve was. They said there was reserve on the item. And then it said online, sorry, reserve was not met, but I received a phone call 2 days after the auction saying, hey, reserve wasn't met, but they accept your bid if you'd still like to pay. So I got the item underneath because they were trying to close it out. Have you guys done stuff like that where maybe reserve wasn't met, but somebody came in and even said, hey, can I give you an offer here?
well, if you have a reserve and it's fairly close, then, you know, usually you want to talk to that buyer and say, you know, here, cards on the table. We got a $15,000 reserve. You were at 11.5. And then I'd probably also call the seller so I can prepare myself to negotiate this deal. Say, can you come off that 15 at all? Yeah, I'll do 14. Okay, you know, and say, I'll try to get them down to 14,000. And you know, would that work for you? And you just try to negotiate that kind of deal. But you got to be real careful. You know, one, if you said there was a reserve and everybody knows it no-selled, then that's good. Okay. If you ever get caught running somebody's bid with fake bidders, people really hate that. Okay. And you know, you ran them to 14,000. The last competitive bid was at 11,000. And they took a fake bid at 14,250 and asked you to come back at 14,500, and you said, no, I'm through. And then they come back after the auction and say, you know, I can get that for you for 14,250. Well, you sold it for 14,500. That stinks. And people aren't stupid. And you've insulted their intelligence. You know, you're much better off just being up front. It's got a reserve and it didn't get there. Wish it could have. Because a lot of times somebody in the crowd will go, let's go see what's going to take to buy that. But, you know, running people and especially getting caught.
I seen that happen on a piece of heavy equipment one time where a guy was bidding and all of a sudden he stopped and said, who am I bidding against? Where's my other bid?
Yeah.
They didn't have one. I mean, they were up at like $90-some thousand.
Now, if they have reserved, if it's not an absolute auction, and they've reserved in their terms and conditions that they can take bids on behalf of the seller, then that's legal. But that has to be in their terms and conditions. Okay? And it just gets real sticky and it gets real ugly. You know, and of course what I loved to do back when we were doing all live auctions, you know, we'd have two people bidding, you know, over here, and this person say, who am I bidding against? I said, well, I can make it real easy. Just don't bid and I'll show you. What do you mean? Sold. Right here. The guy raises his card. Well, I would have bid against. Then you should have. But we don't play those games. And I usually, okay, you know, that, what you basically did is accuse me of doing something dishonest. Next line. And they learn the lesson. Not doing that. And then everybody goes, oh, well, yeah, there you go. Yes, sir.
If I'm bidding, that scenario happens where I get caught up and I don't realize I'm not bidding against anybody, but I keep throwing bids up.
Yeah.
Can that auctioneer take those bids right after the other, or do they have to stay?
Only, as I said, the only way they can do that is if they have reserved the right to bid on behalf of the seller in their terms and conditions. That's the only way it can happen. Other than that, I mean, other than that, in theory, legally, you could sue the auctioneer for specific performance. Of course, you have to prove all this, you know, that you should get it at the last legitimate bid that you made, which was after another real bid. And but that has happened, especially now with video cameras. That can happen, and it's. You know, once again, we talked about that ethics thing earlier. When you decide to cross this line and start screwing people over, you're on the way down, okay, in this industry. You got to make sure everybody understands you're doing everything on the up and up. This is all transparent. We can all see what's going on here, and that's part of the beautiful thing about auctions, okay? You've got good merchandise and you know how to find the buyers. There should not be an issue. Yes,
You put reserves in your terms and conditions. If you have some bigger items that's reserved, do you publicly announce that before you sell it? Or do you just leave it in your terms and conditions and expect them to find out?
Most people do not talk about that. But if you're going to no-sell it, then you're pretty much going to tell everybody, you know, you get it up to the bid, you know, this has got a reserve on it and we're not close. We are close, you know. We're at 23,000. It's going to take 25,000 to sell it today. If anybody's interested, let us know. And grab one of the ringmen. You may have one of the ringmen run over and say, "Yeah, 286 will take it for that." Sold. And then back up and tell everybody. 3 lots ago with the reserve, we just sold it. And bang the hammer down or slam your hand, say the word sold. It just looks better with everything sold. Okay, everybody understand the theory here on this? There's nothing exact. There are no rules. There's just some guidelines of how to figure out what it's going to, cost you to do the sale. We have some idea of what it's going to bring, and then you just calculate, simple math, calculate what you need to be charging. Okay? Any other questions?
Back to your comment about crazy customers.
Mm-hmm.
With social media, with everything that's involved that they, used to, they could, tell people, make a phone call or whatever. Now they can sit down, 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Isn't it, not everybody needs to have an auction done by you?
What do you mean now?
I mean, there's plenty of auction companies out there. While you're defending yourself against this guy, you could be making money somewhere else if you just said thanks but no thanks.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. I mean, a lot of times I know there's other auctioneers that can do it cheaper, and that's usually one that I'm not going to make very much money on.
Right.
And then I'll say, listen, let me set you up with this auction company. They're closer to you, whatever. They can do it a little bit cheaper. I got to take people 200 miles, to get to you, whatever the case may be. Yeah, and I refer it to somebody else.
And I'm even talking about the guy who said, well, if he's a block down the way, I don't care how crazy. But,
Oh.
but even a block down the road, if he's that crazy,
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, I've seen all levels of crazy. I mean,
but having to deal with crazy takes time. And there's
yes.
only so much time in the world.
Yes, and if they're real crazy, I mean, I've had some that just, afraid, they may just twist off on me and cancel the auction, tell us not to come back on their property, something like that. Oh, no, I would much rather refer that to somebody and let them send me a referral check.
Yeah, see, man, you're right
A
here.
lot
you're a
smaller
block
than
away,
my
you're a block
commission
away,
check
but I'm
is
so-
gonna be, but
I'm
still
so
better
busy.
than nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody back here?
Also, more than likely, you've been in the business 38 years or so, you probably know almost all the auctioneers. Unless it's some Joe Blow trying to do, whatever, stepping in for a brother or sister or somebody's held up. What do you think?
Yeah, and really and truly, it's been a long time since I've been that concerned about who I was competing with.
Right.
Yeah. But when you've done it, you have certain advantages when you've done it as long as I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but in the early days, I stayed and watched.
I
Yes,
was just gonna ask, I'm in more of a rural market,
yeah.
so, you know that all these people that have had auctions that talk, farmers talk to each other, estate auctions, but they, do they have an expectation based on the standard that's out there, or do you think it's still better just to sell it by the size of the auction? I mean, I like this, but I don't know what the expectation is based on the other auctioneers in that market, because everybody knows everybody.
Well, okay, I'll tell you that
Often.
years ago, I was one of the first auctioneers to do a buyer's premium on farm equipment. And everybody looked at me and said, oh my God, he has lost his mind. And I had farm equipment auctioneers show up at the auction to watch the train wreck. Except there was no train wreck. And I made, on that particular auction, an extra $20,000 that I would not have had I done it the way they did. And then after that, other people started doing it too. So sometimes you got to be the first one to step off. It depends on what are you selling.
Well,
If we're selling really good stuff,
right.
you can ask for blood samples from everybody.
Well, I feel like we
I mean-
sell it. I just know that there's two auctioneers in the area, neither one of which do a buyer's premium. I think, and I thought, well, we can, that's gonna give us an edge. Because it's gonna give it an edge with the people want us to sell.
Well, you can cut down on their commission rate.
Yeah, and people are gonna like that, and the buyers are still gonna come.
Yeah. I've had, literally, it was 1993. I've only had it happen one time, actually twice. 2 times in 38 years, I've had somebody say, we're not coming because you have a buyer's premium. and that was in the early days. 1993 and probably before that, I had one other person say that. We don't like buyer's premiums, we're not coming. And I didn't say this, but a little voice inside my head said, well, that'd be this voice over here. Goodbye, because now I've got room for somebody else who will. Get your cheap ass out of my auction. Sorry. Yes?
What's the average, for a renewal check, the average percent?
Referral?
Referral check.
There's no average. You just, some people want,
So it's not
you know,
like buyer's premium?
I usually would do 10 to 20% of the net. The net, not my gross, but my net profit. I made $10,000 on the auction. I'd send them $1,000 to $2,000. What did they do for me? We were running 70 miles an hour down I-35, and we saw this going out of business sign. Thought we'd better call and tell you about it. I'll send you a gift certificate for a steak dinner. Okay. I'm in the office of the president of XYZ Construction Company, and I'm telling them that you're the auction company that they need to hire. How quick can you get down here? I'll be down there in an hour. Okay, well, I'll have it teed up for you when you get here. The guy, I was in my Sunday school class. Okay, they have teed it up as good as they can. That's worth a big referral. But what did we do? Well, I think you ought to call these people. And I have to call them. Well, that's a steak dinner. But when you walk me in the door, maybe not physically walk me in the door, but these people have been our customer. They're a relative. They're a friend. They're somebody we've told them you need to do the auction. Then it's more.
He's in my Sunday school class.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, and so I've had a bunch. I've had people, you get people. That's another thing. When you go to the NAA convention and you meet somebody from Michigan and they have a deal in Texas, and they go, well, that's a decent deal, but we're not going all the way to Texas. We're not going all the way to Michigan. How far are you from Lansing? I got a deal for you. How quick can you get to Lansing to look at this deal? And that's when you take advantage of that. Meeting those people. You have somebody to call. I met a guy in Michigan. I know a guy in Michigan. So
I would assume your buyer premium is something that if they don't have it, the other companies that shows their inexperience.
that's not necessarily true.
Oh, really?
No, I mean a lot of people who've been doing it for a long time, don't want to change.
Nobody in the state of Michigan will charge a buyer's premium for farm equipment, not for live.
Maybe that could be.
That's what they're doing, but I don't agree with it. I mean,
That could be.
I'm going to charge a buyer's premium. I'm going to have a cap.
Well, if you're going to, let's say you're going to charge them 15% commission. You want to pay 15% or you want to pay 5% and me charge 10 to the buyer? I don't think it'll take them too long to do that math.
So is that a question you asked that other person?
I don't, but I'm not in that market. If I was in that market, I think I would. If I was going to go somewhere, if somebody's going to call me, come to Michigan, we got this big farm we need you to sell. Okay, well, assuming I was going to go, that's what I'd do. And then I go, and by the way, nobody around here uses buyer's premium. Really? Why do you think that? I mean, I want them to sell me on that. Tell me about that. Let me tell you what the buyer's premium does.
How do you convince that's a good question for me to ask you. How do you convince when you're at this farmer's place and he's got all this beautiful equipment? Nobody, there's auctioneers in our state, I could name names, popular, been there, they've been doing this, and their dad did this, and their dad did this, blah, blah, blah. And nobody does that for a live auction. What makes you think that you're just this young guy just starting out? How do you know?
Well, Mr. Seller, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But let's just jot this down on a piece of paper. Okay? Now, we're going to charge you whatever the commission is here. Or we can charge this amount to the buyer and you pay this small amount. Doesn't that sound attractive to you? Well, they're just going to deduct their bid by the amount of that buyer's premium. Let me ask you, have you ever bought a new car? Yeah, I bought a new car. And they quoted you the price. And then when they told you you're going to pay sales tax on top of that, you go, oh, no, we're not doing it. We're not paying that sales tax thing. People pay buyer's premiums all the time. It's called sales tax. We're used to it. But if you want to pay it all, that's fine.
And to me, in my mind, if they have like a really nice lineup of equipment, I'm going to tell them as a salesman, listen, it's hard to get equipment bought. You got the most beautiful stuff that you took care of your whole life. They are going to come buy it. They don't care. They're going to come buy it.
Yeah,
They're going to
you're probably right. You're probably right. Let's talk about that in the break. Any other questions? All right. So, Laurie,
10 minutes.
10-minute break. Who is next to go?
When we get finished with this side, we'll take a break.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, we've got a break for 10 minutes.